Welcome back to On the Entrepreneur's Journey. I'm your host, Peter Santry, former Wall Street exec turned leadership team coach. Each week, I talk with entrepreneurs and business leaders about strategies and lessons that help companies scale, build lasting enterprise value, and become self-managing. Today, my guest is Inaas Arabi, COO of Block Associates Realty, a fast-growing property management company based in North Carolina. Block started with a focus on residential property management and has since expanded into homeownership associations, management, and maintenance services, creating a steady recurring revenue stream and a stronger, more resilient business. Inaas has developed a unique operating model that solves a problem many service companies face: the feast and famine cycle of selling work, delivering it, and then having to fill the pipeline all over again. His approach offers lessons for service companies that every entrepreneur can use. In this conversation, you'll hear how Inaas decides which opportunities to pursue and which to walk away from, how he built an operating system that lets the businesses scale without breaking, and how he partners with his CEO to turn the CEO's vision into execution. So if you're looking for takeaways that you can apply more consistently and build value in your own business, this is the episode you want to listen to. So welcome to the show, Inaas.
Thank you, Peter. I'm really pleased to be here. It's always a pleasure to spend some time with you and with the audience. Thank you for the opportunity.
Great. So I always start out, and it's, what prepared you for the role that you have, and what drew you to real estate and Block & Associates Realty in particular?
Awesome. So, you know what they say all the time, that nothing prepares you fully for what you're about to embrace unless you actually are in it and you're working through it.
Yeah.
But there are some highlight moments from prior. Look, in this world, in my opinion, there are very few of us that likes to build stuff. If you from my early days, my childhood days, Lego was kind of my favorite toy to play, and building something out of blocks was always an important thing to be able to do. And the pleasure of seeing it finished product with something that you built from just pieces of Lego, plastic pieces, was always amazing to me. And that transition to really building for operations. So there are the three things that are very, very important for me. One is the operational excellence, building for that. Number two is building for scale. And then number three is building for growth. And when you put all of those three things together, you really would recognize that most of the time you are redoing the entire process that you're looking at in order for you to be able to achieve these three goals, right? Because if you are doing the exact same things that you've done before, you're going to get the exact same results that you've had before, and that's not going to yield you the growth or the scalability that you'd want, or even sometimes the operational excellence. So with that model and mindset, I found myself gravitated toward a lot of opportunities that pertain to building from scratch or redesigning some of these operations. I'll give you a couple of examples because I know your audience probably would want to get some examples specifically for this. In the early 2010, I answered a Craigslist ad, believe it or not, from all places, that was very interesting ad. It was 2 lines of language that basically says, we're looking for the best operators in the local market. If you think you're it, call us. And I felt that was a challenge, right? So I called. Ended up being one of the best phone calls that I could have made in my life. I hooked up with a very large company today. It's called American Homes for Rent. And we embarked on building that business from scratch, managing SFR or single family rental in a scattered site. That's what we call it, where it's in multiple locations, multiple places, and a large volume of homes was almost unheard of at that point. The multifamily side of the business have gotten that very well, and they worked on it very well. But the single family was almost a non-existence, and nobody even was daring enough to embark upon that journey. We did, and within about 3.5 years, we took that company public, and we went from 400 units. So think of like 400 houses to the company managing 37,000 units. Now take a second to imagine that you're going in from 400 to 37,000
Wow.
properties, right? And
Yes.
you're doing that at a scale and you're doing it for a really good result. And those are the two very important underlining thing as well. But what that example taught me is like you got to build and rebuild and build and rebuild, because you're building for going in from 400 to, let's say, 1,000. Then you got to rebuild to go from 1,000 to 5,000. Then you got to rebuild to go from 5 to 10,000 and so forth until you get to that 37,000. I'm happy to report today American Homes for Rent is still listed on the stock exchange under AMH ticker symbol. I think they're still the second largest in the nation, and I believe they're somewhere around 60 or 70,000 units under management. So they've had a lot of success since I left them. And another example that might come to mind is the example of doing AltaSource. Was very similar. Started with no units. We wanted to do third-party management services for a fee. And this is a company that it had a very long history in property preservation, but no institutional knowledge with property management. So they were kind of embarking upon it from scratch, and they needed the right talent to be able to do that. Luckily, I recognized that was another American Homes for Rent experience, if I want to call it that. And I actually took that division from 0 to a little over 11,000 units under management. We managed for some of the best banks in the nation. Like our clients were the top 7 out of the top 10 banks in the nation, plus the private REITs, public REITs, our own funds that we created, and some institutional clients. And again, going back to the early point that I made, when you start, you have no units to be able to manage. So you got to start building for the first phase, which is, again, maybe the first 500. And once you get to the 500, to the next phase and so forth. And you keep on building that way until you get to the right setup. But with this, if you keep on thinking about the operational excellence and scale and growth, it's almost like you're reinventing yourself every step that you achieve in order for you to be able to take it to the next level.
So you get through those two opportunities, and then this one must have come across your screen somehow, and you had the background for it. Tell me what was Block and Associates at that point when you joined it, and what did you do? What did you do there?
Yeah, so I joined Block and Associates about 2.5 years. It's actually 2 years and 6 months to be exact. They had several great things going for them, and they had several operational issues. So let's talk a little bit about the great things. The people and the service, people were top-notch. Talent, the service was definitely top-notch. They were very well known in the local market to be a great service provider, and they had an opportunity to be able to grow. Now, some of the issues that they've had is they were ran like a small mom and pop business with a very traditional setup in our industry that does not yield you the opportunity to be able to grow nor to set up for scale. And that was problematic because when I got in, they could not scale. They could not grow. It's not because the people are not doing a great job. They were, but they just didn't have a model and a way to be able to use that to kind of grow and scale.
Let me stop you there. So you're being brought in as a COO.
Yes.
The position had not existed at that point. So
correct.
Did the owner realize that a bottleneck had formed, and that he was not able to, he had outstripped his capacity to grow the company? And were you specifically brought in with the idea that you could debottleneck it and actually turn it into something that could in fact scale?
Yeah, that's precisely what happened. So I'll talk a little bit about Mike, our CEO, for a second. Number one, he's one of the smartest people I know. And one of his great traits is he recognizes when it's the right time to be able to go out and get the right talent to be on your side, to be able to do the right things. And as you know, Peter, you teach that all the time, that you cannot be all of everything for your business. You have to be able to work through everyone that you have at your disposal to be able to help you and support you. So part of being a CEO is recognizing, hey, I don't have the institutional knowledge to be able to do this, and maybe I need to partner up with the right person to do so. And that's the partnership that we formed, me and him, about this. What drew me to it is, again, remember those Lego blocks that we talked about? It was literally that. You kind of come in and you look at something that has some great traits to it, but you could make a much bigger thing out of it and you could take it to the next level. And that's quite frankly what we decided on doing. As a matter of fact, during my conversation with Mike, a couple of things that I remember saying to him: if you want somebody who's going to come in and just run the business the way it is, just to increase it by 1 or 2% every year, maybe 5%, I'm not your guy. But if you want me to come in and disrupt it and take it to the next level, maybe a couple of more levels upward from that, I'm definitely your guy. But I do need your support to be able to do that. And you and I got to be on the same page of knowing that we're going to have to change the model. We're going to have to build for operational excellence. And then we need to build for scale so we can grow and get you the growth that you really want out of this company. And that's what took place.
So, and this gets right to the heart of the CEO, COO sort of yin and yang in that executive suite there. And Michael realized that he had, certain skills and that he needed your skill set. So as you divided responsibilities, because there is sort of executive suite responsibilities that only can come from the leaders, and that's usually CEO and COO or second in command, whatever you want to call them. So how did you split the world? And did Michael say, these are my skills and this is what I like to do and this was gives me energy, he saw you as complementing that, and he said, this is exactly what I need. So to take me through that conversation and how you divided the world. I'm very interested in it.
Yeah, this actually was a great learning lesson for both of us. We started the conversation in a sense of, like, what is it that we wanted to accomplish with this company? Where do we want to take it to? And we sat down and I provided my planning of how to do this. Now recognize Mike is not from our industry. Like he's very smart, but he comes in from the banking industry. So he's more of like a Wall Street person. It took a little bit of discussion for us to be able to go through what I'm trying to describe and explain. Operationally made sense, but obviously there is a little bit of a hesitation because now he was running that company for a couple of years prior to me coming on. He sees the issues, but he needed to know that what I'm proposing is really truly the fixing for what we're trying to accomplish. So what we decided to do is the following. We worked together for the first 90 days to be able to get the trust built between us and the meetings and the minds, because he's got to recognize that I am who I am and I could deliver on what I'm saying. And I also needed to make sure that he's going to be supportive of what we're trying to do. But after that phase, which was a quick phase, probably about 2 or 3 months, we divided in a sense that I run everything ops. He runs the acquisition engine as well as some of the finance. So if you want to think of him as almost like the next step up from the CFO, as well as the acquisition person that is going out there to be able to grab the companies that we want to buy. Because quite frankly, Peter, when we were talking, we knew that the best vehicle to be able to grow was a couple of them. One of them is we got to grow by acquisition. Like we're buying smaller property management company, rolling them up into the block way. And that's how we grow in unit size. And then the other avenue or vehicle is to basically add on more service levels or service business lines to kind of add on. So this way you're going deep and you're going wide. Deep by getting more units, and then wide by doing or diversification or diversifying with more business units. So that's how we split it up.
Okay. So, and Michael's probably looking at it saying, this is what I love to do. I love to think big picture, look at what markets I want to go in, which companies are the best candidates in those markets. And that's what drives me. I'm a banker. I'm more of a deal guy. and finance is in my blood, and I can figure out how to finance those acquisitions, and I'm going to leave Anas with the running of it and making sure that we're able to bring these things in, bring them into our way, as you said, the block way, but also but then there's a discussion of the horizontal expansion, which is what other services can we offer? And tell me about that, because that's interesting. I mean, you went into the home ownership association, so you're first managing individual housing units
Yeah.
that are being rented, right? And then now you're saying, okay, what other things, what next lane over activities reflect our core competencies, and how did you decide to go into the homeowner association and the maintenance services businesses along with?
Yeah. So this is perfect. I would start off with a little story, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, sure.
So Mike could look at a P&L and within probably about 10 minutes decipher whether this is a business that we want to tackle or not, right? And he's really smart about doing that. So he phoned one day and he says, Inaas, we want to talk about a business that I'm looking at, but I'm worried about the operations of it because it's a little bit unique. Okay, Mike, let me explain a little bit more. Let's talk about it. He says, okay, the business runs two portfolios, a rental portfolio that it's the main bread and butter of what the business does. And they had got into an HOA business from some of those folks that they were working on their rental properties that they happened to be in the HOAs. And they ended up picking up like a very small number of HOAs that they're managing as well. And quite frankly, the business, if I strip out the rental side and buy the rental side, it doesn't make sense from a financial perspective. And even the owner doesn't want to sell them in two separate ways. They want to sell them all as a big package. So we need to figure out one of two things. Either we buy the full company and then strip out the HOA and sell that off to an HOA company to be able to get that squared away, or we figure another way about it. Okay, Mike, well, let us go take a look at it and let's evaluate that. We started digging a little bit deeper into the HOA business. What I recognize is three specific things. One, it's a service business just like the rental side. Okay, so number one, it's all about the people, it's all about the service, which we were doing well anyway, right? Number two, it is a business that is very primed for disruption. It's very old thinking in the way that a lot of companies run these HOAs. And I'm happy to kind of dive into that if you want me to, but it's really very old way to be able to do the business. And then three, it's extremely complementary to the rental business and to the other business that we created, which is the maintenance. Why did we feel it's complementary? Because think about it, Peter, if you are living in a community, some of the owners in that community might have their properties for rent, or they might rent out those properties as landlords. There is also a lot of maintenance items for the HOA itself and for possibly the owners within those HOAs.
Right.
So when you really think about it in those three elements, we figured the best approach is we actually try to run this business unit and see if it's the right fit for us.
So yeah, as I think about it, as I listen to you, it's really you're buying a whole slew of individual rental units. So it's really like buying, a company as opposed to just an individual unit. You're actually, it's a one-to-many solution, and
100%.
and it just leverage your capabilities across more units as opposed to just one. And I could see how it would be very next lane over, same services being offered, and and a need that's very, most homeowners associations, a lot of people, they don't want to manage their property, they don't want to manage these things anyway, and that's why they go into the homeowners association. So yeah, I could see how that would be very complementary. So you have this nice yin and yang between yourselves, between Michael and yourself, and you're going along, and you've created this horizontal expansion as well. So what made you, how did you sort of go, continue the growth? Was it just that you had him
Right.
as your business development person, and I'm sure he had some help, obviously, but you weren't in a position where, you were having seen a constant growth of opportunities. So how did you keep up with the deal flow that he was showing you?
Yeah, perfect. So before we started looking at deals, we really had to have a model, an operating model that made sense, right? Because here's the problem. If you're just bringing me deals, like let's say if you bring in a portfolio, I
Mhm.
sleep, at X and I wake up and you just bought an extra number of units. Now I got to plug those in. And if I don't have an operating model that makes absolute sense of how to do this, what you're going to end up having is not a good experience for
You
anyone
won't be able
involved,
to
right?
deliver, right?
Exactly, 100%. So we agreed on the model. We quite frankly, Peter, you'd have been proud of us because I know what you're teaching on the leadership coaching. We look at things in a sense of like a small CEO or a small COO, and we built our system that way. So our pod model, it really operates almost like a small little company within our company. And that small little company is made up of three specific roles or individuals with those roles, supported by quite a lot of support system around them to be able to give them what they need. But those three elements are the most needed elements in rental property management. So I'll just take a minute just to kind of
Yeah,
walk you
sure.
through it. If you think about rental property management, you're really dealing with three specific things. You're dealing with the tenants themselves, right? Because they're living in the houses. It's
Yeah.
24/7 business. They're using it every day. They're using it during holidays. They're using it on a Monday and on a Sunday, right? And you need to be able to provide them the service that is required in order for you to be able to keep them in these doors. Number two is the maintenance. And the maintenance kind of works quite well with the tenant, but it's a little bit different because with maintenance, you have to take care of the asset itself. You got to fix all the issues to make sure the tenant is having a good experience, but also the assets itself, that it's protected and you're getting the best results out of it, right? Like if
Yeah.
you one example that I give you, like if you have to fix a fridge 15 times where it's cheaper to be able to buy a new fridge, then that's the description that you need to be able to give the owner in order for you to be able to do that well and provide him the service that you want.
Right. Right.
On top of that, you would want somebody who's working with the owners as their asset manager. Now, why do we call them the asset managers, not property managers? Because we do believe that they are taking care of both things. They're taking care of the um, property itself, the asset, but they're also taking care of all the financial aspects of that delivery for the owner. The investment potential for that owner, it's the what the asset manager is kind of looking for, right? If I overspend on maintenance, I hurt my investment thesis. If I under provide the experience of the tenant, they're going to walk, and now I hurt my thesis, my investment thesis. So those three people, you have an asset manager who is the owner's point of contact mostly. Then you have a maintenance coordinator that works on the maintenance. Then you have a tenant coordinator that works on the tenant. They're supported by departments like leasing, inspections, accounting, compliance. And the idea is this pod becomes a small little company. So that asset manager is almost becomes like their little CEO for their little pod. And they work on a specific portfolio of properties that they get to know. They get to know the owners, the tenants, the properties, and they work through and they are able to provide the best service. But that is the
Okay.
model that we can plug in every time and everywhere we're going. So if Mike comes back to me tomorrow and says, "Hey, we want to buy this company and it's got 500 units to it as far as rental portfolio goes," then I know here is precisely what I need to be able to plug and play. And do I have capacity? Do I not have capacity? And if I don't, how do I operate on providing that capacity to be able to do it. And my feedback to him would also talk about time. So like if I am needing to build a brand new pod the way I described it to you, Peter,
Yeah.
I'm going to need 90 days compared to if I already have a pod ready to go and I'm just plugging in with the capacity that they have, then I probably could do this much faster in about 30 days time frame.
Right.
And
So
that's
the
where
operating,
that,
the
that's where
operating,
that operator model makes sense.
yeah, and the operating leverage. If you have capacity, you can obviously take on stuff, and then you at some point you're at a breaking point. You can only manage so many. That mini CEO pod or mini management pod can only take on so many, and then you have to find new ones and the support people that will in turn do that. But what I do love is that you do focus on the tenants, which, if you're talking to your tenants, and you're listening to them, the lease rates stay high, and
Yeah.
you don't lose the building. You're also, the internal workings of it. You're satisfying the needs of the tenants with sort of operating capex, and then you're preserving the asset for the owner, which is really the overall capex, like the roofs, and preserving the asset and making sure that it's going to be viable. Very smart, covering the bases there,
Thank you.
in a nice way. And then geographically, has this model allowed you to move beyond
Uh,
just the Raleigh, North Carolina area, or are you pretty much? I mean, it's a high growth area, I know. So
yeah.
have you been able to expand geographically outside of that?
That's another point of what I love about the relationship that we both have is that we actually purposely stayed within our market. Remember, I came in from a lot of companies where they just went completely nationwide, or at least in multiple states.
Right.
And the problem with the going with multiple states, you need volume and you need scale in order for you to be able to do it and do it well. And I didn't want us to get into a company that has 50 door here, a 20 door there, a 30 doors there, and we're not able to provide the right service level for our clients. And we sat down and we ran the numbers, believe it or not. It was a full Friday worth of work on our end to be able to do this. And we've gotten down to a specific number of units that we are going to need in order for us to be able to open up a new location or a new office, right? And that's very powerful because when we get an opportunity in a new market that is smaller to that number, we look at each other and we're like, we can't do it because that's not to the number of what we need to be able to operate in that location. But if it's higher than that number, then we know at least at that point we can work through it. Or the opposite, sometimes what Mike does is he couples up a couple of deals in the same location to make up that number in order for us to be able to have the volume that we need to operate successfully, right?
Yeah.
And we've devised this plan to be able to do so. So when I started with Block, we had one main office in Cary, which is a suburban of Raleigh, and then we also had like a satellite office that was about 40-mile southwest from it in an area called Sanford. Since then, what we've done is we've added 3 specific locations on top of our Cary location. So we have one in Fayetteville, and now we have a couple of them, one in Archdale and one in Ashboro. But again, we've used the exact same model that we talked about. If there is not enough units to be able to operate in this particular location, either we won't buy this company, or if we are to buy it, we're going to have to add to it to make up to that number. And our goal is to make sure that we capitalize on the volume to have enough scale. And once we build that and build it right greatly, then we go to the next levels and to the next locations.
Then to maintain profitability. Okay.
Precisely.
So you've excellent model, seems to be working, well thought out, and very tight in terms of the region and all that. So take a look forward now. I mean, we're where we are today. What is the next move? Is it this just expanding the model, sort of concentrically outwards? Give me your vision for the next 3 years for Block and Associates.
Absolutely. May I just take a minute? I want to talk about something that might be very important here for the audience, specifically for our conversation, because this business is built on people. What I mean by that, it's a service business. So at the end of the day, that end person who's talking to that client is who's representing your company and representing your brand and doing whether a good job or a bad job, right? So it is intently dependent upon people, right? Now, those people, they need to have the right skill set, they need to have the right knowledge, but they also need to be empowered. Because you and I, we had a conversation a little bit earlier. I really, it kind of stayed in my mind, and I want to bring it up one more time. Us as leaders, we really have to empower our team and our leadership team to be able to operate their businesses and their pods with full ability to be able to make decisions, right? So even though we have pods, we also have departments. Like we have a leasing department, asset management department, maintenance department. And the way we look at these things, the head of each one of these departments is the CEO for their department. And they're the ones that they have to work through all of the, what I would say, the logical questions and answers and decision making and problem solving for their business unit. But the beauty about why we're setting it up this way is because that leadership team then would allow us to go out and do bigger and better things elsewhere. Because if I don't have that leadership team available, ready, and in place to be able to operate, I would not have enough time to be able to go out and help Mike to be able to buy new companies or get into new locations, right? And we found that to be extremely useful lately because I think I was telling you a little bit earlier, recently we've gone through 3 different acquisitions in successions, like one after another every 30 days. Um, you know, I think I got a little bit more white hair out of those 90 days than typical. But what I wanted to talk about is empowering your folks and giving them the ability to run their business and run their piece of that business correctly allowed us to be able to do this because now we can take our time, Mike and I, and concentrate it on the acquisition piece compared to running the day-to-day business and figuring out what are we going to do with every phone call that is coming through or every issue that is coming through. So I want to bring that up. That's really, really important.
Yeah, and that's one of the tenets of what I do as a leadership team coach is to make a business be self-managing, which means you have to empower those people that are CEOs and department heads that are responsible for key functions of the business, and in order for you to be able to look at the bigger picture. And that seems to be what you and Michael have done very nicely is allowed those decisions to be made at the level, the pods up to the senior leadership team for those disciplines. And I think it's a fantastic model.
And I wanted to add one more because this is might also be helpful for a lot of people that might be in my shoes. My advice is to take your time to find the right folks that they're going to be on your leadership team.
Yeah.
A lot of times we struggle where if we have a vacancy, we feel like we need to fill it as fast as we can. And I'll tell you, I made those mistakes myself. The wrong hire could cost you tremendous loss of time, effort, operational excellence, like everything negative you can put behind that, right? And I'll admit I made those mistakes, and I made them because, and I made them in Block because you're under a very tight timeline, if you want to call it that, because when you have that vacancy in place, you're itching to find the right person to be able to put them in that in the particular position. And what we found that if you don't do a due diligence and a good job to be able to screen folks and know what you would want and what they want and see if there is a meeting in the mind, you end up hiring the wrong person, and that wrong person just becomes a disaster for you later.
I think we've all hired more C players than we'd like to admit, and
yes,
the cost of extraction and to the culture and everything else can be severe, and that's a topic for another time because we can talk about the people aspects forever. But you're exactly right, and I'm as guilty as anybody of having done that. I'm kind of
I can talk about growth now since we're talking about growth.
Yeah. If we can hit on that, and then we'll wrap it up.
Yes, and I'll make it really quick. Our goal is to be able to double the size of Block within the next 18 to 24 months. We've gone through 400% growth on the rental side, and close to around, I mean, it's really multiple hundreds of percents on the HOA side, as well as on our maintenance. So our goal is to double the size of this company in the next 18 to 24 months. And I know we can. We've recognized that we needed to do several things that might be a little bit different because it's a learning experience every time, but we know that we could do it. And that's where we wanted to tackle and set as a goal for ourselves for the next 18 to 24 months.
Wow. Well, I like all the things that you're doing, and it reinforces a lot of the things that I teach, and it's got to be exciting for you and Michael, and obviously the value of the company is growing commensurately as well. So Inaas, if we want to get a hold of you and learn more about Block Associates Realty, what's the best way to get in touch with you and find out more about the company?
Perfect. So certainly, if anybody wants to get a hold of me personally, I mean, I'll provide my email address and my phone number. It's inaas@blockrealty.com, 919-459-6310. That's 919-459-6310. You can text and call on the number. Recognize that I go from meeting to meeting all day long. So if it takes me a day to be able to get back to you, please recognize I'm not trying to not help. It's just that I catch up on a lot of these at night. And then LinkedIn might be a really good place if you want to connect on LinkedIn and just kind of learn more about us and we learn more about you. That's perfect. But Peter, I do want to thank you for everything you've shared with us and you taught us, your model and the way that you teach, how to run the business and how to set up people like running CEOs themselves and building the what I would call the leadership people underneath you, so you can actually have ability to be able to let the business run on its own and you concentrate on that growth that you'd want, has been absolutely instrumental to our work. So thank you for everything you've done.
I appreciate it. Well, thank you for your time today, Inaas, and we will and thank you to the audience for listening. And until the next time, we will see you on the entrepreneur's journey. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Peter. Appreciate you.